The twin suns of Valor Prime rose in fractured amber light across the crystalline spires of the Dominion capital. For centuries, the Valari people believed themselves the keepers of history, the arbiters of truth in a galaxy too chaotic to be trusted with its own memory. Within their halls of learning, humans existed only as whispers, cautionary tales told to children. A savage species, long extinct, exaggerated in alien folklore. In the Grand Assembly Chamber, High Chancellor Valeth Drawn leaned back on his obsidian throne as courtiers filed in. At 173 years, his scaled skin had dulled, but his eyes gleamed with the sharpness of power. Before him, the Dominion Council convened in their daily ritual of self-assurance. Another uprising in the Rim colonies, intoned Minister Vec, his voice cold and metallic from decades of vocal augmentation. The rebels call themselves the Sons of Terra. Murmurs echoed through the chamber. The name carried weight, though none admitted why. Drawn raised a clawed hand. Do not be fooled by primitives borrowing from legend. The humans were a myth, nothing more. A fable used to frighten our ancestors into vigilance. A younger counselor dared to interject. Yet the rebels claim their ancestors were human. They whisper of Earth. The Chancellor's laugh cut across the chamber, rich and dismissive. Earth is dust. If it ever existed at all. The words settled over the hall like law. As always, the Dominion silenced doubts with arrogance. But in orbit above Valor Prime, silence cracked. The first anomaly came as a flicker on long-range scanners. A ripple of space where no ships had clearance to travel. Then came the alarms, an impossible number of warp signatures blooming in synchronous rhythm. Defense grids lit up, frantic calculations flooding across control stations. In the skies, the citizens of the capital turned upward as the heavens themselves tore apart. Space shuddered, light fractured, and shapes began to emerge. The first ship was a dagger of metal, black against the stars, angular and unadorned. Then another. And another. Hundreds poured out of warp, moving with precision no one had seen in centuries. Their hulls bore markings alien yet unmistakably deliberate, an emblem of blue and white, a sphere flanked by laurel branches. The Valari trembled. They had seen that insignia before, in their oldest archives. A single word spread like wildfire across the city's channels. Humans. In the assembly chamber, chaos reigned. Ministers barked orders to ready orbital cannons, to scramble defense wings, to summon the Chancellor's guard. Drawn slammed his staff against the floor, demanding order. His scaled lips pressed into a snarl. "Open a channel," he commanded. A hollow screen flickered to life at the chamber's center. For a heartbeat, only static. Then the image sharpened into clarity. A man stood there, flesh and blood, not scaled, not alien. His hair was dark, trimmed with military precision. A uniform of steel gray framed his figure, metals gleaming faintly across his chest. His eyes were calm, hard, and utterly human. "I am Admiral Ward of the Terran Ascendancy," the man said, his voice carrying a weight that silenced the chamber. "We have returned." Gasps, denials, hisses of disbelief rippled across the room. Drawn leaned forward, masking unease with scorn. "Impossible. Humanity was extinguished. You are ghosts wrapped in metal shells." Ward's expression didn't waver. "We endured when your records claimed otherwise. You buried our history, but myths have teeth, Chancellor. And today they bite." The hollow screen widened to show the fleet behind him. Carriers, destroyers, battleships, an armada so vast it blotted the stars. Defense officers in orbit reported frantic updates. The humans had disabled satellite grids within seconds of arrival. No weapons fired, but every Valari system blinked red under their control. Ward's voice cut through the fear. "We come not as conquerors but as proof. Humanity survives. We claim our place among the stars you denied us." The council erupted in shouts. Some demanded war, others urged caution. Drawn gestured them down, his gaze fixed on Ward. "You dare approach Valor Prime uninvited?" This is the heart of the Dominion. You trespass on sovereign ground. Ward tilted his head, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. Sovereign ground rests on lies. You built empires on the ashes of those you declared extinct. We are here to correct the record. For a moment, silence stretched taut across the chamber. Then Drawn struck back with venom. Correction? You presume to lecture the Dominion? You are outnumbered, outgunned, and unwelcomed. Ward's eyes hardened. Numbers lie when skill prevails. Guns fail when courage endures. And welcome is irrelevant when survival demands presence. Behind him, the fleet shifted formation, lines of ships moving like a single organism. The gesture was subtle, but unmistakable, dominance without a shot fired. Citizens across Valor watched from towers, bridges, and plazas, their disbelief giving way to awe. Some trembled in fear, others whispered with reverence. The myth stood above them, clothed in steel, undeniable. The council descended into argument once more, but Drawn silenced them with a single command. His voice was low, edged with a fury he rarely revealed. "Admiral Ward," he hissed, "you have made a grave error. You awaken old scars. The Dominion does not tolerate ghosts." Ward leaned closer to the transmission node. His voice dropped to a near whisper, yet carried like thunder. "Then perhaps it is time the galaxy remembered the cost of underestimating humanity." The transmission cut. Above Valor Prime, the human fleet remained motionless, their silence more terrifying than any barrage. The Valari defenses scrambled, ships launching into orbit, crews rushing to battle stations. But fear had already sunk its claws into the Dominion. For the first time in centuries they faced the unknown. And in that unknown the myth lived. The Dominion's defense wings swarmed into orbit like hornets roused from a nest. Sleek Valari cruisers, their crystalline hulls glimmering in sunlight, formed tight phalanxes around Valor Prime. Crews barked orders, weapons arrays powered, and energy shields flared into readiness. The capital's citizens, watching from below, clung to the fragile belief that the fleet above would shield them. But the human armada did not flinch. Dozens of angular warships held their position, engines humming with controlled menace. Their silence radiated confidence. To the Valari, it was infuriating. High Chancellor Drawn sat in his private command chamber now, the Grand Assembly dismissed. Advisors surrounded him, feeding data through glowing holoscreens. "Their vessels are unregistered in any archive," said Minister Vec, voice unsteady. "Their weapons systems unquantifiable. We can't predict yield." Drawn slammed a claw against the table. "They are scavengers dressing rust in ceremony. They cannot match the Dominion." Another advisor spoke cautiously. "Chancellor, their fleet is coordinated. Too coordinated. We've never recorded such unity of movement." Drawn's eyes narrowed. Arrogance demanded defiance, yet unease gnawed at the edges of his certainty. "Open the channel again," he ordered. The hollow screen flickered back to life. Admiral Ward appeared on the bridge of his flagship, the Resolute. Officers moved with precise efficiency behind him, their composure a weapon in itself. Ward's expression was unreadable, calm, steady, as if this entire confrontation were a lecture he'd given countless times. Drawn leaned forward. "Admiral, you stand in violation of Dominion space. Withdraw your fleet at once or face eradication." Ward didn't blink. "If eradication were possible, Chancellor, it would have happened centuries ago. Humanity does not bow to threat. Not then. Not now." The chamber went still. Drawn's advisors whispered protests, urging him to disengage. The Chancellor ignored them, his pride towering higher than logic. "You speak boldly for a species thought extinct," Drawn said. "But boldness cannot mask weakness. What gives you the audacity to challenge the Dominion?" Ward's answer came sharp and unhesitating. "Survival. You erased our name, but not our will. We endured worlds of fire and ice, starved, fought, rebuilt. Every hardship made us sharper. You dismissed us as legend, and legends returned stronger than fact. The word struck harder than weapons. Across Valor Prime's networks, the broadcast spread despite Dominion censors. Citizens listened, riveted, some frightened, others strangely inspired. Drawn snarled. "You think speeches will unseat empires? We command thousands of fleet. You are one." Ward's eyes hardened. "One is enough to prove a point." At that instant, alarms shrieked through Valari control deck. Their outer defense satellites, designed to track and target intruders, blinked offline. Entire arrays of orbital cannons froze, unresponsive. Engineers shouted in panic. Systems weren't destroyed, they had been hijacked. On the Resolute, Ward gave a single nod to his tactical officer. No words, no flourish, just efficiency. "Impossible," Drawn hissed as reports flooded his chamber. "They've overridden Dominion encryption protocols." Ward leaned forward slightly, his tone quiet but razor-sharp. "Your empire built walls and called them unbreakable. Humanity builds keys." Fury boiled in Drawn's chest. "You dare humiliate us?" Ward's voice cut back, low and even. "We dare exist." The Valari Chancellor cut the channel with a slash of his claws, unwilling to grant the human Admiral more of an audience. Yet the seed had been planted. Across the city, whispers of admiration mingled with fear. For the first time in living memory, the Dominion had been made to stumble. Hours passed under tense stalemate. The Valari fleet held formation, shields raised, weapons aimed. The humans remained motionless, their restraint unnerving. Neither side fired. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. Inside the Resolute's war room, Ward studied projections of the Dominion fleet. His officers offered data. Shield harmonics, weak points in formation, possible strike vectors. But the Admiral's focus wasn't solely tactical. "They'll strike soon," he said, voice quiet, steady. "Arrogance demands it." A young officer glanced at him. "And when they do?" Ward's gaze stayed locked on the display. "We remind them why humanity endures." The strike came at dusk, when Valor's twin suns sank low. Valari cruisers surged forward, beams of searing light slicing across the void. The opening volley lit the heavens with violent brilliance. Citizens below watched, believing victory assured. Human ships shifted, not in panic, but in seamless countermotion. The Resolute's flanking destroyers absorbed the first barrage with layered shields, dispersing energy harmlessly into space. Then came the reply, precise, controlled. Human rail batteries fired not at the Valari ships, but at empty coordinates ahead of their movement. Valari cruisers turned directly into the trap. In seconds, 3 were disabled, their systems gutted by kinetic strike. No fireballs, no wreckage, only silence, their hulls adrift. Shock rippled through Valari command. This was no desperate myth fighting for scraps. This was discipline honed through centuries of survival. On the bridge of the Resolute, Ward gave a single order. "Hold fire." His fleet obeyed. Dozens of Dominion ships hung vulnerable, yet humanity did not finish them. The silence that followed was deafening, more humiliating than destruction. In his chamber, Drawn roared in outrage, claws tearing across the console. His advisors shrank back, none daring to speak. To the Chancellor, restraint was more insulting than attack. "This is mockery," he spat. Yet beneath his fury, doubt crept. Humanity had just revealed control, precision, and mercy, traits dangerous in an enemy underestimated. Back aboard the Resolute, Ward stood motionless, his hands folded behind his back. His officers awaited further orders, but he remained silent, gaze fixed on the stars. He knew the message had been sent. The Dominion now understood. Humans were no myth, no scattered relics clinging to memory. They were a force. And this was only the beginning. The skies above Valor Prime glowed with scars of battle. Disabled Valari cruisers drifted in silence, their crystalline hulls cracked and powerless. Citizens watching from the surface trembled, not from human firepower, but from the realization that their mighty fleets had been humbled in minutes. In the Dominion's war command chamber, Chancellor Drawn's fury burned hotter than the sun's. "They humiliate us," he roared, claws slicing sparks across the table's surface. "They wound, then refuse to kill. They want us to kneel." Minister Vec, pale and shaken, replied carefully. "Chancellor, their restraint unsettles our people more than destruction would. If they can win so easily and choose not to finish us—" He stopped, unwilling to voice the rest. "Cowards cloak themselves in restraint," Drawn snapped. "They think to frighten us into surrender. We will crush this phantom fleet and erase their insult from memory." Orders echoed through Volari command network. Reinforcements, hundreds of warships from neighboring sectors, were summoned. Every cannon, every fighter, every drone was mobilized. Valar Prime had never seen such a concentrated defense. On the Resolute, Admiral Ward studied the shifting tactical display. Blue holographic markers of incoming Volari reinforcements filled the projection. His officers reported numbers, vectors, and probabilities with clipped precision. Commander Arya Tolland, his second-in-command, stepped forward. "They're rallying everything. If we hold position, we'll be outnumbered 4-1. Ward's eyes narrowed, but his voice was calm. "Numbers are irrelevant if the mind directing them is predictable. Drawn is angry. Anger breeds mistakes." Tolland gave a thin smile. "And we exploit them." Ward nodded once. "Prepare Phase 2. The Volari counterattack began with thunder. Entire waves of ships surged forward, their energy lances blazing like storms of fire. Space lit with furious brilliance, every beam designed to overwhelm shields by sheer volume. But the humans had anticipated this. Ward's fleet fractured, not in retreat but in design. Destroyers peeled away in precise arcs, baiting the Dominion's front lines into pursuit. As Volari squadrons broke formation to chase, human cruisers swept in from the flanks, rail batteries carving into exposed engines. 3 Dominion battleships shattered in less than a minute. Another fell silent, hacked mid-battle by human cyber warfare specialists. On Valar's surface, broadcasts spilled into every home despite government censors. Citizens saw their defenders falter, saw human ships move like pieces on a game board, every motion deliberate. Panic mingled with awe. For generations they had believed humans extinct. Now they witnessed proof, not only of survival but of superiority. In his command chamber, Drawn's composure cracked. "They fight like no species we've faced. They move as one mind." An advisor whispered, almost reverent, "Perhaps the myths were not exaggerated." Drawn turned, his eyes blazing. "Myths die when empires strike hard enough. Signal the planetary cannons. Strip their fleet from the skies." Colossal silos unfolded across Valar Prime. Towers taller than mountains rose from the ground, each a planetary defense cannon capable of vaporizing ships in orbit. Citizens scattered in terror as the weapons charged, skies boiling with energy. On the Resolute, alarms blared. The tactical display filled with glowing red lines tracing from surface to orbit. "Cannons charging," Tolland reported. "Impact in 60 seconds. Ward's jaw tightened. He had expected this. "Execute diversion protocol." Human frigates surged forward in reckless dives toward the planet's surface. Volari defenses scrambled to intercept, distracted by the sudden assault. At the last moment, frigates scattered, deploying swarms of decoy drones. Thousands of false signals flooded Volari sensors, overwhelming targeting systems. The first planetary cannon fired. Its beam struck empty space. Another fired, vaporizing only drones. Human ships slipped between firing arcs, untouched. Then the Resolute unleashed its counterstrike. A single rail salvo, calculated with surgical precision, struck one of the planetary cannons at its base. The colossal tower collapsed, its death shaking Valar's crust. Across the capital, silence fell. The Dominion's invincible weapon had fallen to a single human volley. On the bridge of the Resolute, Ward spoke softly, almost to himself. "Proof is more powerful than annihilation." Tolland glanced at him. They'll hate us more for sparing them. Ward's gaze stayed locked on the burning skyline of Valor Prime. Hatred fades. Fear lingers. But memory is eternal. Let them remember humanity as the blade they mocked until it cut. Back in Dominion Command, Drawn's rage boiled into desperation. We cannot defeat them head-on, Minister Vec whispered. We must uncover their weakness. Another aide hesitated, then revealed intelligence reports intercepted from human transmissions. Chancellor, there are colonies, hidden worlds. They've been rebuilding for centuries. This fleet is only one arm of something larger. The chamber went silent. If the reports were true, the Dominion was not facing one resurgent fleet, it was facing a civilization reborn in the shadows, spreading like wildfire. Drawn's claws dug into the table. Find those colonies. Burn them. If we cut out the root, the branches die. But even as he spoke, doubt lanced through him. Myths could not build fleets like this. Myths could not outmaneuver empires. Humanity had grown in darkness, unseen, until it now stood in the light, undeniable. On the Resolute, Ward received word of intercepted Dominion chatter. They had discovered the existence of hidden colonies. He knew what that meant. The war would not end with Valor Prime. The Dominion would hunt humanity across the stars. He stood silent for a moment, then turned to his officers. His voice was steady, resolute. They wanted a myth. Instead, they found a people. The Dominion will come for our homes, our families, our future. Let them. Humanity does not run. We rise. His words carried through the fleet, broadcast to every ship. Across the armada, men and women straightened, their fear tempered into steel. They had lived too long in shadows. Now the galaxy saw them. And the galaxy would never forget. High above Valor Prime, the human fleet reformed into unbroken lines. The Dominion ships, battered and humiliated, drifted in disarray. Between them stretched silence, a silence heavy with the certainty that this was no end, but a beginning. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's most powerful empire trembled. Humanity had returned.